those who wanted to be part of India, those who always had respect for Ma Bharti. Now it's their time. If you come to Kashmir now, you will see that there are you will see the tiranga everywhere in most of the buildings. You will see most of the school buildings. In fact, Burhan Wani's father, who is a school principal, he hoisted the national flag in his school also, and he clearly said in his video that he was not forced to do it by anyone.
Hello, namaste, and a very good evening. My name is Citti, and you're watching Citti Media. Joining me for a conversation today is Yana Mir. She is the editor-in-chief of Real Kashmir News. Yana ji, namaste. Thank you so much for joining me today. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. Namaste and assalamu alaikum to all your viewers. And thank you for having me on your show.
It's a pleasure to have you on our show. First of all, do tell us, before we delve into other topics, how is Kashmir at the moment, since the abrogation of Article 370, how have things changed so far?
Things have started turning towards development now. There is no more of all this, there's no more of the old narrative. You don't get to hear that anywhere, that Kashmir should be a separate country, and separate Kashmir, all of that conflict, fabricated conflict stories. I mean, it was like a catch-22 situation. Agar aapko yaad ho, there was a time when Yasin Malik used to be interviewed. So Yasin Malik, he would influence the youth of Kashmir to be involved in this conflict that he and his peers created. Okay, so instead of telling the youth to focus on studies and to focus on a career, to focus on nation building, to focus on other prospects in life, he would just tell them, he would just influence them. He and his peers would use Islam as a tool, and they would influence the youth to be a part of a conflict which they themselves fabricated. But now, after the abrogation of, and then when he was being interviewed, so then he would be asked that every time, if you notice any of his interviews, even when he decided to give up violence and do things in a so-called peaceful way, what was he doing? He would influence the youth to join the conflict, to pick up guns. Then he would come on TV and give interviews and say things like, आप यूथ को अगर पुलिस अगर पकड़ के जेल में डालेगी तो फिर यूथ क्या करेगा? बंदूक उठाएगा. लेकिन पुलिस क्यों पकड़ती है? बंदूक उठाता है इसलिए पुलिस पकड़ती है. फिर वो जाके टीवी पे बोलता है आपने जेल में डाला तो फिर यूथ बंदूक ही उठाएगा. So you can imagine the catch-22 situation that they had put our country into, that they had put Kashmiris into, and they had put India's sovereignty into this catch-22 situation. So after abrogation of 370, all that has stopped. And I think more than the abrogation of 370, it was the masterstroke done by Shri Amit Shah ji of putting all these people who were putting Kashmiris into a catch-22 situation, putting them behind bars, putting them in jail, and not caring a damn about what any foreign media has to say about it, what any NGO has to say about it, because enough was enough. The country had seen enough. Kashmiris had seen enough. And I'm talking about sane and sensible Kashmiris who did not want their youth to become a part of this conflict. They had seen enough. And it was high time that these mischief mongers who were selling the conflict to run their homes. I'm not sure if you're aware that Yasin Malik owns so much of land, so much of commercial space in Srinagar, which is right now rented out. And I'm not sure if, even sitting in jail, his family is minting money. Where did all that money come from? By keeping that fabricated conflict alive. So that fabricated conflict and its narrative has come to an end since the abrogation of 370, so that the Awam can focus more on development and economic prospects in life. That is the biggest change.
And do you think the Awam feels more nationalistic today? They feel hopeful that being a part of India, they will see progress and development, because it is not just merely about political changes or legislative interventions, right? Because at the end of the day, wo manasikata bhi badalna hota hai. So there has to be a change in the mindset of the people in Kashmir.
If they choose to be, see, nationalistic wave hai Kashmir mein. The reason for that is those who were nationalists from before, they finally, उनके मुंह में जबान आ गई. अब उनका वक्त है. It's there. They are trending now. All those who stood with India throughout those years of conflict,
Right.
those who saw the exodus, those who were not happy about the way things were happening in Kashmir, those who were not happy that Kashmir was not moving forward at the same pace as other states of India, those who wanted to be part of India, those who always had respect for Ma Bharti. Now it's their time, so now they can openly go and say, or they can stand in Lal Chowk and say that we're Indians, we're proud Indians. So before the abrogation of 370, that wasn't possible. In fact, even after the abrogation of 370, it took the nationalists a year or 2 years to actually gauge the situation. Okay, now it's safe. We can come out of our homes and we can actually scream on the top of our lungs, Bharat Mata ki jai. And nobody's going to shoot us down, hunt us down. No one's going to enter our homes and just shoot us down just because we love India. So it took them 1-2 years to actually register that. So it's their time. Yes, there's a nationalistic wave. If you come to Kashmir now, you will see that there are, you will see the tiranga everywhere, in most of the buildings. You will see most of the school buildings. In fact, Burhan Wani's father, who is a school principal, he hoisted the national flag in his school also. And he clearly said in his video that he was not forced to do it by anyone. And I believe he may have had the change of heart after he went and he went, and stayed at the Art of Living Center in Bangalore for a few months. And I think that sort of, changed his mindset. They had to come. Kashmir was closed for the Kashmir. India was closed for the, like, how do I say it? Kashmir was closed to the world. It was closed for the world. People like, Gilani and other people, other leaders from Hurriyat and all, they ensured that Kashmiris were always closed to the world. They always only believed what they were fabricating. They never actually stepped out of Kashmir to see what was happening outside and what they're missing out on. But all that stopped after the abrogation of 370. And also, the most important thing, which I keep saying everywhere, is that there were more than 108 citizen-friendly laws that were being implemented in the rest of India, which were not being implemented in Kashmir. And now, after the abrogation, those citizen-friendly laws are being implemented in Kashmir. Those include women's rights to property, rights of senior citizens, and many such laws.
Indeed. Today, I want you to know that the rest of India salutes the spirit of Kashmiris like you, who've stood the ground and who have fought for Ma Bharti. So my pranams to you, and my respect to people like you.
Thank you so much.
Today, Kashmir is what it is because of the struggle and the sacrifices that people like you have done. Yana ji, you also run a very successful media organization in Kashmir. And this is way different from the age-old narratives that both the Kashmiri media, Pakistani media, and certain sections of the international press were carrying against Kashmir. So as far as the perception battle is concerned, do you think India has won that yet, or do we still have a long way to go?
It's not India, it's truth that is winning. And we are not showing any perception in the Real Kashmir News. The media agency that you spoke about, which I own, is called the Real Kashmir News. And we don't show any perception or any fabricated narrative in it, like Pakistan does. So what we show is reality. In fact, we show the reality of Pakistan also. There are many videos that they don't want shown anywhere in the world, but we do show the struggles and of the people living on that side of Kashmir, which is occupied by Pakistan. In fact, even the struggles and the atrocities being faced by people in Balochistan, we show all that in our news, so that the Kashmiri Awam is aware that they made a very right decision to stick with India. Because the kind of atrocities that are happening in Pakistan, as much as it may try to conceal it, it can, it can go around assassinating its own journalists, but it can't do a thing to journalists in India who have taken up this challenge that they want to expose whatever's going on in Pakistan. They can't do a thing because we are living safely in India. And so that is what we're showing. We're showing the truth, we're showing the reality, we are not showing any perception. So in fact, what is happening is this truth and this reality was not being shown for a long time. For the last 70 years that the conflict, at least the last 30 years that the conflict was at its peak. Now the truth is being shown, not fabrication.
Mm-hmm. And I don't know, but you may be in touch with people from the Pakistan occupied Kashmir region. So do the people know that the Kashmiris in on the other side, I shouldn't say border because it's technically wrong to say that. So do they know that Indian Kashmiris are extremely happy about the situation and the prospects that they have by being a part of India?
As much as they don't want to accept it, they are aware of it. They are aware of it as much as they try to win this war by using Islam as a tool. But they're aware of it that Kashmiris on the Indian side are much more happier, are prospering at a faster pace in spite of being conflict ridden since the past 30 years. We have an airport, they don't have an airport. I'm talking about that side of Kashmir. Our elections are free and fair. Their elections are always, forced elections, rigged elections. We don't have chronic water and electricity problems like they have. 20 hours load shedding, and I don't know if you're aware, there's no drinking water available right now in Gilgit-Baltistan, Hunza area of Gilgit-Baltistan. And people are always protesting on the streets because of the load shedding. And you can imagine they have the rivers, but their resources are being sold off, and they're not being they're being forced to get displaced because the Mangla Dam is coming up. CPEC projects are coming up. They are being displaced from their land just to please China. So
The Chinese aren't doing anything much in return. Maybe on paper they are.
Who's not doing?
China.
Why would China care about them? China just cares about its projects, and Pakistan is behaving like a puppet or a ghulam of China. It does not care about the people of Gilgit-Baltistan, who have now been forced more into this problem by forcibly turning their land into the 5th province of Pakistan. And I'm surprised, why is there no outrage about that? When the 370 was abrogated, there was a lot of outrage. Why no outrage that Gilgit-Baltistan has been forcefully made into a province of Pakistan? Why no outrage about that? And now people are coming on streets and saying, we never voted for PTI. Then how did Imran Khan win in our area?
Right.
So you can imagine this kind of stuff going on there.
Absolutely. And today, how does the common Kashmiri feel about the Indian government or Prime Minister Modi, for that example? Because obviously the perception of certain vested interests, the political leaders, former political leaders in Kashmir, and certain Hurriyat organizations, they're obviously unilateral and unidirectional, and we can't change their minds. But how do common Kashmiris perceive the government or Prime Minister Modi?
Now what the good thing is that a lot of nationalists are now stepping into politics or becoming more, more prominent in the politics of Kashmir. And they're getting more popular in Kashmir, those who were nationalists. Now, for example, I don't know about the past. I'll tell you about this, the current scenario. Now, for example, Awami National Conference, being headed by Muzaffar Shah, who is the grandson of Sheikh Abdullah. He is openly condemning terrorist attacks that are even happening now. They're not as many as they used to happen before the abrogation, but there are still some happening now. And he's condemning them openly. He's condemning the attacks on sarpanches. He's condemning the grenade attacks that are happening because normal civilians are also getting killed in that. So when he's condemning and when he's requesting, not blaming, but requesting the administration to look into matters, investigate, and put an end to these things. So that changes things. Whereas during Gilani's era, what used to happen is they used to plot, they used to connive, then they used to blame India. So you can understand the changes in the scenario. And nowadays, people are protesting against the terrorist attacks. Now, before, what used to happen is, if there were terrorist attacks, they used to say, "Acha hua, jisko mara. He deserved it because he's going against, he does not appreciate the blood of the mujahideen. He's going
Right.
against our jihad. He's going against our fight for azadi. He supports India, so he deserves to die. He's wajibul qatl." That was a narrative. But now the narrative of sanity, the narrative of being against terrorism in any form is actually on the rise.
Mm-hmm. And today, what has happened to a select few people who were used as baits and then given them a part-time hobby like stone pelting for that matter? Has there been a slight change?
I'm sorry, what is your question?
My question is, before the abrogation of Article 370, stone pelting was a very common exercise. It was almost a part-time occupation for many because they were earning their bread and butter out of it. Because they were manipulated into it. Many of them were not even genuinely involved in that.
They were not just manipulated. I'll tell you, they had started using it as a way to earn money.
Right.
I'll tell you something. It's a harsh reality. It's a harsh truth. So now when Kashmiris, even today, they complain, their biggest complaint is that there's not much employment and government should do more to generate employment. You tell me one thing, if everyone's just going to be after government jobs and if they're not going to look at other ways of income, like, being self-employed, skill development or entrepreneurship, starting a business, when they're not going to look at all that, they just want a government job. There's nothing else that they want to earn money out of except government job. And there are just so many government jobs, but there are so many more people. How many jobs can the government give? So what the government can do is make things easy for Kashmiris to do business, make it easy for them to avail business loans, give them subsidies on business loans. And all this the government is already doing. But still, why are people complaining that, Modi government has failed to generate employment? Reason being, a lot of them were employed by doing the same things that you mentioned. They were getting paid $500 a day just to pelt stones and to scream, "Hum kya chahte azadi." Now that income has stopped, right? So all those people who are only depending on that to run their houses, they are now unemployed. So now again, unfortunately, it was their undoing that they did not wish to get educated or they did not wish to take. And surprisingly, a lot of them were educated, those who used to pelt stones and all that. They were educated and they were doing jobs. But because there was more money in this, so they actually quit their jobs just to go on the streets and pelt stones and ensure that whenever a hartal is announced by Mr. Gilani, everyone stays at home, patrolling and all these things. They used to make more money out of doing all that, pulling people out of their homes whenever a mujahideen, their so-called mujahideen, unfortunately they insult the word mujahideen. Mujahideen is not somebody who goes against the sovereignty of his nation, but anyway, so ensuring that people are forcibly dragged out of their homes whenever a terrorist funeral is, a procession is going on, for just for doing these things, they used to earn so much more that they never bothered to retain their jobs. So now the thing is that, see, the Modi government is such that any kind of, it's not only in Kashmir, in any state in India, any kind of corrupt way of making money, Modi government does not allow it, as you already know.
Right.
So many of them are unemployed for this reason. But anyway, the government still is humble enough to take it upon itself and is trying its best to generate more jobs by inviting foreigners to invest in Kashmir and doing such things, like when foreign investments come, there'll be more jobs generated. They're even trying to do more development, more bridges, more tunnels. The Zojila Pass, for example, there are so many, the Zojila Tunnel I'm talking about. There's so many bridges that have come up. There are so many, of course, due to the COVID, all these plans have taken a hit, as in they're still ongoing. More than 7,000 projects that were that had stalled because of embezzling of funds by the previous dynastic politicians, embezzling of the funds that were coming from the center. Due to that, more than 7,000 projects were stalled and those were all restarted. by the UT government. So you can, so you can imagine how much the government is trying to do to ensure that more jobs are created, just so that all these people who had chosen to run their homes by pelting stones get employed.
No, absolutely. I completely believe you, because if we know anything about a government job, it's the fact that it makes you so lazy that you wouldn't want to do anything else at all. So I'm sure stone pelting would have come down naturally because of the amount of jobs that Kashmir is getting these days. Um, I also want to touch upon the narratives that have been built over the years, especially against Kashmiri minorities, that includes Hindus, Sikhs, and Christians for that matter. How has there been a change, and do you feel any sense of optimism that Pandits are going to return to the valley and there can be coexistence in the future?
See, when I told you that I'll tell you, I'll be very frank with you. Even the Pandits are aware that now there's a nationalist wave going on in the valley. And when I say nationalist, I mean those Kashmiris who stand with Ma Bharti. And obviously, standing with Ma Bharti means that they are more than willing to cohabitate with their Pandit brethren. They're more than happy for the Pandits to come back, and they want to coexist with them. But now it's up to the Pandits. Okay, now, so when they talk about rehabilitation, now if you're talking about the government having to build homes for them, that may take a while. But those who are well settled, alhamdulillah, who are doing well outside of Kashmir, who own properties outside of Kashmir or who are abroad outside of India, I think it's the right time for them to come back and start buying properties again and invest in their own homeland and start staying there. I think it's the right time, and I really don't know what they're waiting for.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. And did you watch the movie Kashmir Files? Because everybody's been watching it.
Unfortunately, I want to watch it, but I haven't watched it yet. I don't know where to watch it because I don't have the time to actually go to a cinema hall and watch.
Mm-hmm.
I have been traveling and I was planning, because there are no cinema halls in Kashmir. So, but I have been traveling and but I haven't been getting the time to go to a cinema hall and watch it. And I don't think it is released on any of the OTT platforms. So I haven't unfortunately watched it yet. But I have seen, I have seen really heart-wrenching, what do you say, responses from people who have seen it. I had seen the movie Shikara before this. And even though my Kashmiri Pandit friends have told me that it doesn't even show like 10% of the pain that we've actually witnessed. And yet I actually cried when I saw that movie. I went up to my terrace and I was sitting there and crying for an hour after watching that movie. And the reason I was sitting on my terrace is because from my terrace, I can see the compound next to my house. So the compound next to my house is an abandoned Pandit house. And when I see the shattered windows and when I see the way it looks completely abandoned right now. And I actually sit on the terrace and I imagine कि यहाँ पे भी बच्चों की किलकारियां होती होंगी, यहाँ पे बर्तनों की आवाज आती होगी एक टाइम पे, यहाँ पे आंगन में old people बैठ के चाय पी रहे होंगे, यहाँ पर भी there was life in this house at one point of time. But see now, look at the halat of this house, how they must have had to flee, how they must have had to abandon it. When I see that, I cry. And after watching Shikara, I actually went up to the terrace to stare at that house and cry. It must have been so devastating to leave everything that is yours behind and just go to a new place and not know where to start from, where to restart your life from. And it might have been still easier for those who were single or young, but for those who had children or who had old parents, how they must have struggled and how they must have, leaving behind a property and fleeing a place. You can imagine who does that. It's what un par kitna zulm hua hoga that they had to do that. So these things really make me cry. It makes me feel bad. But at the same time, those who after watching Kashmir Files are saying things like, oh, it's due to secular Hindus that Hindus have suffered due to secularism. I want to tell such people there are also those like me who cry. There are also those like my aunt who's now in Srinagar, but when she had married newly, she was in Baramulla, and I used to go there in my childhood. And there was a Pandit house that was abandoned in my childhood, and I remember me and my cousins used to actually enter that house. We used to go on our adventure hikes, and then we used to enter that house and look around and come running back. And there was this one book that caught my fancy in that Pandit house, and once I finally gathered some courage, I got that book from there and I brought it to my aunt's home. And when she saw that I got something from there, she asked me, "What is this?" I said, "It's a book from there and I liked it and I got it. I want to read it." She slapped me. So go and put it back, because those people will come back and we have to make sure their house is as it is when they come back. So, there are also Muslims like her. There are also Muslims like us who want them to come back. There are Muslims who have maintained their Hamsayas' homes the way they are, hoping that one day they'll come back. All Muslims are not the type who considered the homes of Pandits as Baitul Mal. Okay, they have left, now this is all ours to capture. No, there are also Muslims who want them to come back. And these are the Muslims who have suffered more than the Hindus during the conflict, because they were getting killed. They were getting killed, they were getting targeted because they were being called kafirs, because they supported the Hindu brothers to come back. So there are also Muslims like that, and they are waiting for the Pandits to come back. So it's very unfair to say that secularism has made us Hindus suffer. And when I see, for example, Yogi Ji's win in Uttar Pradesh, I am amazed and I'm proud that despite all of this anti-Muslim propaganda and all that was going on, there was a windfall win. And don't tell me that there are no Muslims who must have voted for him in that win.
Yeah.
It's not possible. So the Hindu-Muslim unity always overcomes these kind of talks, negative talks that distort the unity between Hindus and Muslims. The unity always overcomes these distortions and these narratives. And the same with Aam Aadmi Party. At least in case of BJP, there has always been a propaganda of Hindutva attached to it. Look at Aam Aadmi Party, again something to be proud of. There's no propaganda attached to them. No Hindu, no Muslim, they just do their work and they get their votes. So I'm really amazed and very proud of the new age Indian politics. The way BJP is overcoming the so-called Hindutva propaganda, and the way Aam Aadmi Party is getting votes just by doing work, and absolutely there is no narrative affiliated with religion, when it comes to Aam Aadmi Party. So I am very proud of the new age Indian politics.
Thank you so much for joining us today for this conversation, Yana ji. It's been quite an eye-opener for somebody like me who's quite disconnected. And I only get to read about Kashmir either through newspaper articles or through sources from my journalist friends. This has been a positive change, because I'm sure these are the stories that can have a very good impact. The kind of journalism that you're pursuing at the Real Kashmir News has to be pursued by the rest of the country, especially if you look at the circus that goes on in Indian media. So, I hope along with whatever needs to be changed, I hope there is a positive change in Kashmir, there is a positive change in Indian journalism as well. And I'm sure we have all the reasons to stay positive about it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Namaste. And again, my respect for everything that you and people like you in Kashmir are doing.
Thank you so much.
Please remember to subscribe to us and switch on the notifications for this channel. For our other social media links, more content, and to support our work, please visit citti.net.